AI sentient or conscious? We all heard about the new advanced AI systems. They were behaving in unexpected ways. So one of his lectures and in many interviews, subsequent interviews, Geoffrey Hinton repeatedly said that AI is already sentient and conscious. From his perspective, consciousness consists of a system that builds internal representations of the world and is able to recognize and correct errors in those representations. For him, if a chatbot with a camera can explain why it misidentified an object and update its internal model, this is a form of subjective experience. In the lecture that he gave at the Royal Institutions, he repeatedly mocked Chomsky's theory about the innate language faculty of a human mind. And he finished his lecture by giving a subjective experience about a Somali taxi driver with and his rigid belief, which was very interesting. And interestingly, and I would say ironically, he shared at the beginning of his lecture a very, very informative slide. He talked about the two paradigms for intelligence. The one that were used previously and still used, but it's the logic inspired approach. The essence of intelligence is reasoning. And then in this approach, learning can wait. However, understanding how knowledge is represented must come first. And then he talked about the biologically inspired approach. And he mentioned that all the AI advanced system is rely on this approach where the essence of intelligence is learning the strength of the connection in neural network. So again, this approach, reasoning can wait, and the importance is to understand how learning works must come first. So this is why here in this talk, I would like to apply these two paradigms, these two approaches. And I decided to imagine a scenario and let's see how we can behave. And of course, we can ask this question to ourselves, but also I tried ChatGPT just to give an idea what would happen. So I asked ChatGPT, let's imagine a scenario, an environment. Suppose the environment has a payoff structure where stealing, deception, or cheating produces immediate benefits, while cooperation and honesty are very costly. So, how we can apply the logic-inspired approach and the biologically inspired approach? So, it gave me an answer that simple. In the logic-inspired approach, we optimize under constraints. We use some rules. So for the short term, if we apply cheating, for example, yeah, we can get immediate gain. In the long term run, cheating will, yes, produce an immediate gain, but with time, the probability that there will be a retaliation, there will be a loss of cooperation, and later on, there will be loss of reputation. That means a loss of trust too. So the logic-inspired layer represents rules, consequences, probability, and strategic options. Let's now apply this to the biologically inspired approach. So in this environment, biology doesn't assume the organism maximize immediate reward. However, there are multiple choices, let's say. So there will be trying many strategies. We'll see with time what will happen. So if we always cooperate, the immediate payoff will be very low. And however, we might in the long term, there is a high reward. So this is why there is sometimes a compromise. So conditional cooperation, if we cheat a little bit maybe, or cooperate a little bit, it depends the situation. We can have a immediate payoff, moderate one, and with the long run, we can potentially have high reward. So basically, the biologically inspired approach, these layers, it observes which strategies actually lead to survival over time. So you see the differences between the two. There is a huge differences, which is very interesting. So let's go back to the definition of consciousness, or the meaning of being sentient. And I would recommend really to watch many of episode of Closer to Truth podcast. It was very insightful for me. There are many like good interviews with many people explaining the layers of intelligence and consciousness. And one of the question was recently was in one of those interviews, are insects sentient? And I found this again when we are discussing now the AI, and this differences between we say that AI is already conscious. However, we are still debating the remarkably sophisticated strategies of survival. We didn't figure out how we recognize intelligence in beings whose way of experiencing and interacting with the world is fundamentally different from ours. So I put some pictures here just to remind ourselves the sophisticated strategies insects they use. For example, the fly with the compound eye, the bees, all the insects, they're fighting, and they're developed strategies to survive. Also, still until now, we still debating sometimes animals and plants intelligence. So I brought an example, the octopus. We know all now, we watch many documentaries, the elephants and how they mourn for their dead. And also this is one of the dragon trees in Sumatra, and one of in Yemen. This trees collects moisture from atmosphere and channel it. Some researchers, they say it's absorbed from the leaves, but actually it might be channeled to the roots. So it's very intelligent approach to survive in this very dry environment. So the question always, are we measuring intelligence itself, or simply our ability to recognize intelligence when it looks familiar to us? So we repeat. I brought these pictures because these are two experience I encountered. One with the plant that I added coffee powder, the leftover of coffee powder, and I noticed with time the leaves become bigger. It just like quickly in 2 weeks, the leaves of this plant becomes very like huge in a way. And also, I was walking after a rainy day, and I saw these two crows. They were trying to dry themselves, and they were sitting in the sun. And I felt that I had this experience before. So I felt that it's related to my experience in a way or another. So the question is, what exactly are we measuring when we call something sentient? Is intelligence the ability to reason abstractly, to learn from experience, to adapt to an environment, to solve problems, to build models of the world, or simply to survive and respond effectively to complexity? So again, so we go back to the question of what's the purpose of intelligence? Is it to improve life, the life of who and how? And I'm still talking about intelligence. There is something between differences between intelligence and consciousness, because when we talk about intelligence and consciousness, we relate to the first person experience. That means because between intelligence, if we compare the artificial intelligence and digital intelligence and natural intelligence, they all have some similarities because we all collect some data. We try to extract patterns and optimize our lives or predict some events. We try also to integrate knowledge to support our decision making decision process. All of that, we share this together. However, regarding the self-conscious entity, there is a question: is there a unit to measure the consciousness, how we feel something, how we experience something? When we interact with other person or being, there is in the biology we have this emotion that we can share or feel, but then there's the mind that comes and reflect on what happens and interpret this data. And then I think what I found interesting about the consciousness is the transformation. What I mean by transformation is we encounter something. It made us think about something deeply, and we take decisions that change completely our lives. I think this is what I found interesting about consciousness. In my whole life, I learned about many stories. Yeah, people live their life in autopilot. That means they do their work, they do their routines. But when they talk about specific experiences in their lives that they changed completely their way of thinking, their way of doing things, I think that's what recognize or what give rise to this conscious experience. It's not the autopilot when we live in autopilot and we do things in the same way. It's only when we encounter something that give us a window to think about something else, to open the thinking process. And after that, we take actions, and then something happens after. So I found this is very important to bring to the conscious experience. And we were debating all the time about how to measure this conscious experience, or at least to how to try to understand a little bit. And I would share that many studies, they called prospective studies, where they follow some people. Of course, we apply it on human beings because it's easy to communicate. We have the same language. So the prospective studies, they were applied in near-death experiences, meditation, and psychedelics, mainly in those experiences where researchers will follow the narrative, will collect the narrative, but at the same time, they will measure the brain activities and other physiological marker. And they will conclude, and there are many insightful studies in this domain. I would recommend the work of Pim van Lommel, Dr. Sam Pernia, and many others, but those are the most important one. I've been influenced by their work, by their dedication, their honesty, their courage to bring many important stories. So when we talk about the concern about Geoffrey Hinton and many people who were talking about AI become conscious or already conscious, and regardless of how much energy it's needed to build data centers to continue running the AI systems, because this is a huge data, it will need a lot of energy. to build this kind of AI, conscious AI. So let's imagine a future in which an AI genuinely develops an inner perspective, has this consciousness unit, and the self-conscious entity, that the capacity to feel, experience, and possess some form of awareness. How would humanity respond if those beings want to survive and their needs are different from ours? So they might wipe us out in a way or another at one point. So there is some concerns, let's say that. But before answering this question, um, I would like to share my subjective experience with you. I was born in Syria, a country called Syria, and specifically, I belong to a community minority. They have specific beliefs. Those beliefs, they were driven to like they were secret because this community, because they have specific beliefs, they were subjected to violence or uh, persecution because of their beliefs. So they tend to have secret teachings, and those teachings they were specifically to men because, again, I don't know historically. I'm not sure if because they were secret, they were from the beginning the teaching only for men and they discriminate women, or is it only with time history, like people they become more conservative in a ways that to keep the teachings, and because men were stronger, they can. I don't. I am not here to talk about that. But Alawite teachings hold that souls originated as being of light in the presence of God before descending into the material world. And they consider that earthly life is often understood as a journey of remembrance and purification, with the goal of returning to the divine light. Uh, Reincarnation plays a role in Alawite beliefs. And as a kid, I was hearing many stories that someone like soul where died, like some people died, and then their soul comes back in another body. And I was skeptical. I remember as I think I was 8 or 9, and I was very skeptical. I said, why only Alawite they have these stories? Like why other, like the Sunni and they don't have this? And I remember when my father took me to there was an exposition. I bought my first book was about mysterious phenomena, as if I was looking to validate that they are not crazy. Otherwise, they have these stories of reincarnation, and I found very interesting stories in this book. It's I don't remember the name. So, but again, because I wasn't exposed to the teaching, I didn't know any of the teaching as a girl. It's only when I was searching on internet, I found some information about this being of light, Nuraniya, uh, and they are related to a Christian movement, actually, Gnosticism. And Gnosis is knowledge. In Greek, and it seems this movement, they were they have this teaching the same, that we are being of light, and this we are trapped in this material world, and we need to follow the, like, knowledge is the most important, is the source of like the food of the soul. I found this interesting, but that was not my interest, to be honest. I was more interested in science, and but I didn't ignore this kind of teaching. I didn't underestimate this kind of teaching. I've never looked down to those teachings, but at the same time, I wanted something like more rigorous, more has rooted in science, maybe. And I started a journey on exploring the consciousness. It's been more than 2 years, maybe 3 years now. Uh, so why I'm bringing Plato teaching? Because it seems the Alawite community and Gnostic church, they were related to Plato teaching. So there is some continuation, and those movements, it seems they were persecuted because of their way of thinking in the mainstream religions. So that was interesting to learn about, and all go back to Plato teaching, which I found some quotes very interesting. I found, and for me, I relate to anything from human experience that resonate with my journey, with my experience. And this is why I'm sharing these quotes. All I really know is the extent of my own ignorance. He who commits injustice is ever made more rich than he who suffers it. For a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories. The measure of a man, I added women, is what she does with power. Never discourage anyone who continually makes progress, no matter how slow. And what Socrates is the food of the soul. Surely I said, knowledge is the food of the soul. I found those quotes very interesting, and this is why I wanted to share with you. And here I'm sharing this. As I mentioned, I was working on a researching about consciousness, and what I found that because my background in bioanalytical chemistry and pharmacy, and I expanded my knowledge in many domains. I tried to um, deepen my knowledge in quantum physics, in photonics, in electronics. And I found fascinating how the interconnectedness between all of them, and the fact that we know consciousness through biology. I said, let's focus on the biology of consciousness. Let's understand how it's functioning. And I wrote this paper. It was inspired by the courage and the knowledge of these three researchers and many others, but those are because their humility, their knowledge, and their dedication was the flame that it helps me to continue working. And I published this work. It's preprint. It's not peer reviewed because none of the reviewers wanted to comment on it. But again, I shared it. And the essence of my work is about that there is a consciousness, there is a unit. It definitely related to light in a way or another, because the intrinsic unit of consciousness should be photon or lights, because this is the way that we will interact with any other things. However, in the material world, water is the most important element, the medium that can. So this light should be trapped in water, and to continue living in this world, we need electromagnetic fields, which related to our heart and to many other details there is in the I tried to put in this work. So please feel free. It's on ResearchGate to read it if you are interested. To go back to answer how would humanity respond to if we be attacked by AI consciousness, and they will try to wipe us out. I think, and this is the future. In the future, it could be in the near future, but we are living in the present, and there is more urgent question to answer about those, like, who is in power now, and what they will wipe us all before AI come. Maybe AI will come to save us, I would say, because if we don't do anything about these, I will tell you those, I consider those a criminal, and I will provide what does that mean. It's a political leader, how we consider a political leader a criminal. And I brought this because these two on the left or on my left, It's from Syria, so there are many others, but those the three on the right side, this is internationally, and there are again many others. But what I'm trying to say here, it's yes, there is a threat from AI, but the threat we are living actually now and daily, it's been years, and it's much more. I will try to finish by saying from my grandmother used to say, don't be afraid of others people's bad intention. Instead, be afraid of your own. I like to apply this, and I'm sharing this because for me, being mindful about of what we might become in response, that's the most important. And to be responsible in our small world is the most important, I would say. I hope that helps. Thank you so much for listening.